folks, today we are going to talk about history of the Levi's 501. So just to get this out of the way, this document here is straight from Levi's. It's not mine, so credit where credit's due. And I am not a historian, so take this all with a grain of salt. But I think it's all going to be in the ballpark. My goal here is to read through this document, talk about it a little bit, so we can talk about all the different iterations of Levi's 501 jeans starting in the 1800s all the way to the present day, and actually mainly to the 60s. And then I'm going to go over here to different websites that I've saved, and reference to kind of illustrate what we're looking at together. Okay, so this isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to get you in the ballpark in case you're wondering, how did the Levi's 501 evolve over the years? Okay, so let's jump in together. 1853, Levi Strauss arrives in San Francisco, California, in the U.S., and opens a wholesale dry goods business selling clothing, blankets, handkerchiefs, etc. to small general stores throughout the American West. 1872, Jacob Davis, a Reno, Nevada tailor, writes to Levi Strauss telling him about the process he invented to rivet the pocket corners on men's pants to make them stronger. He suggests the two men take out a patent on the process together, and Levi agrees. So this is interesting right here. So Jacob Davis is actually the name of the tailor. So if you want to talk about who actually invented what we know as the Levi jean, and it comes down to the rivets. We'll see that in the next paragraphs. It's not the guy who has the name of the brand, right? Levi Strauss. Levi Strauss is just the businessman. The guy who actually did it was Jacob Davis. No, I'm not saying that there's any crime there. Like, I'm sure it was all agreed upon. All I'm saying is it's just fascinating that the actual tailor guy that did the work, his name was Jacob Davis, and the businessman was Levi Strauss. Okay, so 1873. This is after the Civil War, right? Civil War was 1865. So just to give you an idea, 1849, 49ers. That's like Gold Rush started. Anyways. This whole era right here is what we're talking about. 1873, after the Civil War. Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis are granted a patent on the process of riveting pants by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office on May 20th. It is patent number 139121, and this is the invention of the blue jean. So just stop right there for a second. I have done some research, and I can tell you that he did not invent the blue jean. There's different origins, right? Any blue-blooded denim head will know all about this way more than me. But the fabric itself, it was made in Nimes, which is in France, I believe, and it was called Denimes, of Nimes, the fabric from Nimes, right? That's where denim came from, the Denimes, that sort of thing, and it was a twill. Nowadays, it's often a 3-to-1, 3 threads going in one direction, or yarns, and one going the other direction, as opposed to a chambray, which is one direction and one the opposite direction. But especially back then, it wasn't necessarily always 3-to-1. It could be 2-to-1, it could be 3-to-1, 5-to-1, 7-to-1. And the jean designation, that word comes from, I think it's the Genoa area in Italy. They had this blue twill fabric that's similar to our common denim fabric. And so before that, even the other Europeans would talk about that as stuff from Genoa. In other words, jeans, blue jeans, Genoa, those blue pants that the people in Genoa wear, that kind of idea. Yeah, blue jean. So Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis, they did not invent the blue jean. All they did was invent this rivet to reinforce stress points on the jeans. So a lot of people think, and I thought until recently, that Levi Strauss invented the blue jean. And no, many other people in Italy and France invented that fabric and blue twill fabric like that and used it for many, many years. Many decades, and so all that these guys did was put rivets on it. So all the workers at the time were super stoked. Oh my gosh, these things are way stronger. So anyways, the pants, called waist overalls, have one back pocket with the arcuate stitching design, a watch pocket, a cinch, suspender buttons, and a rivet in the crotch. We don't know the origin of the arcuate stitching design. Stories about it representing the wing spread of a bird are myths. The loss of our records in 1906, see below, makes it impossible to know why the stitching was first used. There may have been a tradition of pocket stitching on men's workwear, but this has not been found in any research done so far. The cinch and suspender buttons were standard on men's pants. Keep in mind that we did not invent the cut or fit of the waist overalls. What we did was take traditional men's work pants and rivet them, creating the new category of workwear, which we today call blue jeans. The pants are made of 9-ounce XX blue denim, which comes from the Amasie mill in Manchester, New Hampshire. They're sewn in San Francisco, probably in combination of factory production and home sewing, because of the loss of historical records. In the 1906 earthquake and fire, we don't yet know when the first factories were opened. It's also possible we leased factory space in 1870 and then opened our own factories in the 1880s. So they're talking in the first person plural because this is Levi Strauss's document. So we is the Levi Strauss company. And yes, in 1906, there was an earthquake and massive fire in San Francisco, which destroyed many of their records. And so this piece of history, this information they're talking about is lost. But what were they talking about? Okay, so let's check this out. So this is roughly what they're talking about. Once again, I'm no pro, I'm not a historian, so a lot of these kind of jeans that I'm going to show you, I cannot guarantee that they're an exact representation of what's being talked about. I can only guarantee that they are close to what's being talked about. The only one that I'm sure is an exact representation is anything I show you from Connor Sewing Factory, One Piece of Rock. Any of these are literally stitch for stitch made off of actual vintage pieces of clothing, down to any imperfections or whatever. It's really phenomenal, remarkable. So anything I show you from One Piece of Rock, Connor Sewing Factory, that's exact. Everything else, like Warehouse, Sugarcane, TCB, that's maybe really close, but I can't guarantee that it's exact. If you know, chime in the comments below. Okay, so this is what they're talking about. When it talked about the arcuate stitching, this is the arcuate right here. The decorative stitching on a back pocket. Doesn't matter which back pocket. It could be, this doesn't have an arcuate. Neither does that. Man. Okay, this. It doesn't matter what brand. It could be Levi's, Warehouse, whatever. If you see decorative stitching on a back pocket, it's called the arcuate. They're saying that they don't know where it came from. This classic, so if you look at, let's see here. Well, none of these are actual Levi's, so you're not going to see the actual Levi arcuate, but you know what I'm saying. So there's that. This is a cinch back right here. It looks like this. The cinch back, that was there. These suspender buttons right here, that was there. Another thing which they mentioned was the little, see if I can find a picture of it. The crotch rivet. Oh, this one doesn't have it. Making a liar out of me. Let's try this one. They got it. Yeah, see that right there? This crotch rivet. And then this is called a watch pocket. We call it a coin pocket now often, but apparently that was a watch pocket. So this is the idea here. This 1870s, 1880s kind of jean. It's got suspender buttons, a crotch rivet, and that cinch back, that buckle back. No belt loops, and only 4 pockets. They don't have 2 back pockets, making it a 5 pocket. It's just one back pocket, the 4 pocket, okay? So that's pretty fascinating. That's a close-up of what the buckle back would have looked like. Pretty cool. So a lot of brands do this. Anyways. And then there's some other ones, like I have these black signs that are a modernized version. They added belt loops, which makes it nice for modern wear, but this is not historically accurate. However, some of the details are, like some vintage jeans from this period have this kind of pocket bag and stuff like that. On this one, they put the buttons for the suspenders on the inside. Not accurate. you know, and then there's some other ones here. Anyways, so that's the idea. All right, 1880s looks kind of like that. You got your pockets, you got your watch pocket, suspender buttons, button fly, like you saw on these, got the crotch rivet, and then, as we said, that cinch back, and only one rear pocket, like that. Okay, so let's move on. 1886. The two-horse brand leather patch is first used on the waist overalls. Its purpose was to demonstrate the strength of the pants and reinforce our status as the originator of patent riveted clothing. We knew that the patent would go into the public domain around 1890. That's because patents only last so long. And decided to reinforce our message of originality and strength graphically. There may also have been a tradition of some sort of patch on men's workwear at this time, but this has been hard to research. This patch right here, see this famous patch with the two horses? They're hitched to this pair of jeans and they're like acting like they're pulling the jeans apart. Well, that's what it's talking about. This patch originated then in 1886. That's when they added the patch. So that thing doesn't date all the way back, but it dates back to that time period. And let me find that while I'm here. Let's find that arcuate. All right, there it is. See this arcuate right here? Loading, loading, loading. Whoa, that's real close. Okay, perfect. Got the patch with the horses, the red tag right there, which hasn't happened yet in our little study here. 1886, that wasn't there. That tag was not there. And neither was this other pocket over here. But this arcuate was. So that's what they're talking about. This is the classic Levi's arcuate. All right? Okay, so back to the discussion at hand. Get to 1890. The rivet patent goes into the public domain. In other words, Levi Strauss & Company can no longer be the exclusive manufacturer of this riveted clothing. People can start using their idea. Lot numbers are first assigned to the products being manufactured. 501 is used to designate the famous copper riveted waist overall. So it's in 1890 that the 501 designation happened. So that's the first time in history they said, here's a Levi 501. So 501 is their oldest model. We don't know why this number was chosen. We also made a 201 jean, which was a less expensive version of the pants, as well as other products using other three-digit numbers. Because of the loss of our records in 1906, the reasons for many of these changes are unknown. So let's check out some of these 1890s jeans. Okay, so this is like supposed to be an 1880s model, which kind of predates that. Again, I don't know how accurate this is. Check these guys out. This is supposed to be, yeah, again, 1880s, 1890s. This right here is my black sign pair, like I said. Another four-pocket model. It's supposed to be, yeah, like an 1890s sort of thing, except, as I said, the belt loops are not historically accurate. And then this is it's supposed to be a little later when they added the other pocket. But, yeah. So, yeah, 1890s, it's going to look something like that. More or less the same. All right. 1901. The pants, now just called overalls instead of waist overalls, so they're not called blue jeans yet, now have two back pockets. It's likely we added this additional pocket due to consumer requests or changes in men's fashions at the time. In 1902, Levi Strauss dies at the age of 73. His nephews take over the business. Their descendants still run the company today. Okay, so again, this is called a 20s, but the idea is the same. Another pocket is added here. So you got the cinch back, you've got the suspender buttons, and two pockets. And as far as I know, this one is not accurate because it has belt loops. But I don't know, that document I'm reading might not be comprehensive. There might be details left out. But as far as I know, they didn't add belt loops yet. So anyways, there's that. Here's another kind of version of it. This is a warehouse brand. Again, all kind of the same stuff. There's that rivet at the crotch. Cinch back with the buckle, the patch. It's got 2 pockets in the back. Yeah, so this is their 1922. This is a Blackhorse. I've got this pair in a Hewitt Heritage fabric, different fabric, but this is not historically accurate, but this is their version of that kind of thing. So this started in the early 1900s and carried on into the 20s, which is why most of these are labeled like, 1922 model or whatever. Let's see, what's this? That's the 30s. We'll talk about that later. Anyways, yeah. 1906, San Francisco earthquake and fire destroys the headquarters and the factories. New factories built on Valencia Street in San Francisco. Opens in November. 1910s, so going into World War I here pretty soon. Sometime during this decade, the jeans are sewn with a felled inseam. Prior to this time, the inseam was mock felled. I don't know a lot about it, but felled inseam is like basically like fold one part of the fabric into the next part that they're sewing it to, and then they sew that seam together like that. 1915, the overalls win a highest award at the Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco. Levi Strauss begins to buy denim from Cone Mills. Cone Mills is now shut down, and that's like a huge deal among denim heads, is finding new old stock Cone Mills fabric, because once it's gone, it's gone. Even though a lot of their stuff was bought by someone else and they're using it. Actual Cone Mills from Greensboro, North Carolina, that fabric, once it's gone, it's gone. Anyways, I don't have a lot of it. Most of it's sanforized as far as I know, which I'm kind of more into unsanforized now. Headed down that road. Anyways, yeah, it's a deal. 1915, headed through 1918, up in here, early 1900s, Teddy Roosevelt's the president, all that stuff. 1911, the Colt 1911 pistol is invented, right? 1918, Spanish flu, World War I is ending, all that, getting into the roaring 20s here. Oh, there we go. 1922, belt loops are added to the overalls. Nice. Okay, so any of these right here. Okay, 20, so that's accurate. If it's got some belt loops, then it is being historically accurate, at least in that regard. I can't guarantee in every way. But yeah, so these are all accurate. And as I said, this is inspired. This is not a historical reproduction. This is their version of like a 1920s jean. And I have a pair, and I love these. I would recommend these. Black sign as well, even though this is predates the 20s. Okay, very cool. So that's the deal. Belt loops are added, but the suspender buttons are still retained. The cinch is also still used on the pants, but some men cut it off in order to wear the overalls with a belt. Again, the addition of belt loops was in response to changes in men's fashions and our understanding of what consumers wanted. 1927, Cone Mills develops the 10-ounce red selvage denim exclusively for the 501 jeans. The denim is woven in 29-inch wide looms. 1936, the red tab is first placed on the right back pocket of the overalls. The word Levi's is stitched in white in all capital letters on one side only. The tab is created to differentiate Levi's overalls from the many competitors in the marketplace who were using dark denim and an arcuate stitch. We had not yet trademarked the arcuate, so other companies were using it in direct imitation of us. Then there's 1937. The back pockets on the overalls are sewn so that they cover the rivets. This is in response to consumers who complained that the rivets scratched furniture and saddles. The suspender buttons are removed from the overalls. Consumers are given snap-on buttons in case they still want to wear suspenders. Okay, so this is really cool. So this is a 1936, all right? So as they said, it's got belt loops. It's got the crotch rivet still a 5-pocket setup. But for the very first time, you get this little red tab here. Let's see what other pictures they have. And you got the cinch back and all that stuff. The watch pocket, now called the coin pocket. Yeah, there it is. So this is not actual Levi's, so they can't put Levi's on it. But the red tab right there, that's the first time, 1936. So really cool, right? But then, as it said, 1937, they made some changes. They took off the suspender buttons. And bigger deal than that, and you could add suspender buttons, as they said, if you wanted. You could add those. But they didn't come that way. Bigger deal than that, though, hidden rivets. That's when the hidden rivets came, okay? So, well, this is apparently not accurate because that has hidden rivets too. Let me show you. Here we go. See this right here? That rivet. And I believe my black signs. Let's see. Bum, ba, da, bum. Yep. Okay, so like, see how you can see the rivets there? A lot of these see the rivets right there. But you go to this 1937 model, and it's got hidden rivets. According to this, though, that didn't happen until 1937. All right, so this 1936 is apparently not super accurate. But this is, at least in this regard. Cool. All right, let's move on. So World War II comes, 1939. It starts in Europe and all that. And there's the Pacific Theater as well. Changes are made to the overalls in order to conform to rules set by the War Production Board for the conservation of raw materials. The crotch rivet, the watch pocket rivets, and the back cinch are removed to save fabric and metal. The arcuate stitching design is removed as the thread is decorative only and not vital to the usefulness of the garment. In order to keep the design on the pants, Levi, Strauss & Company sewing machine operators paint it on each pair. That's really cool. Okay, so now we're getting into Connor Sewing Factory territory. I mean, Connor Sewing Factory makes a lot of different jeans. I just didn't take the time to go find them. But the ones that they have, at least on their website, are these. Now, let me just say real quick. So one of the fascinating things about these vintage garments, again, I don't know a ton, but I do know that unlike nowadays, there was a lot of variance because all this was very much developing. And so see over here, there's a San Francisco model, a Santa Cruz model, and a San Jose model. And they have other ones too. It's not uncommon for you to find, say you get 5 vintage Levi's from the year 1942, okay? All 5 of those could be slightly different, right? Especially World War II models. I don't know how common this is prior to that, but like in World War II when things were changing so much, they might use what they had at the time, right? You run out of red thread, they tell you make it with orange thread. I don't know what the exact differences are. All I know is I've heard vintage guys often talk about how there'll be 2 pairs from the same year and they're just like randomly different. And the people who run Connor Sewing Factory have access to actual vintage collections. They have a bunch of vintage pieces and they model these specifically off those. And so like there'll be randomly something that you've never seen before in any other pair of Levi's. So that's really cool. And as far as I know, a lot of that begins to happen around the World War II time. So like what they're saying here is like this is a World War II model, San Francisco. Well, the Santa Cruz is ever so slightly different, and the San Jose is ever so slightly different. Crazy. And so this says the San Jose model, a special model sold at U.S. Army post-exchange shops during World War II. It features a wider stitch width and rougher sewing work. The silhouette is low cut and slightly slimmer. This one is differentiated by this information. This model was designed for workers in military supply production. Of the 3 World War II models, this one features the most careful sewing with shorter stitch pitch due to the required strength for the type of work they were made for. This became the standard silhouette for classic style jeans. The so-called World War II model is a simplified piece reflecting the wartime production restrictions. It was made for use among the general U.S. population. This is the signature piece from the 3 World War II models. So little things like that. This says no rivet on the coin pocket. Dun da da da. And see this? As I said, no arcuate to save money or whatever. So all very fascinating. 43. The arcuate stitching design is registered as a trademark, so nobody else can use it. 1947. Okay, so check this out. First, let's check out 46. Connor Sewing Factory. Historically accurate. Although production restriction ended, this model still carries vestiges from the World War II model. This piece was produced in the first half of 1946, still using World War II denim fabric and a blending of different details from different periods. So this is the year after the war ended. The war ended in 1945. So this is the year after, and they've got these. In the second half of that year, they see these ones come out. The second half of 1946 saw increasingly stable production systems and development and adoption of newer fabric. Detail work, however, was still blending elements from the transitional World War II models with those of emerging post-war models. Okay, so that's fascinating. So we're going to go to this 1947 here, and before we really read up on that, we're going to go right here. 1947. The post-war version of 501 jeans starts coming off the production line. The cinch is gone forever. The rivets are put back on the watch pocket, and the arcuate is now stitched with a double needle machine, which gives it the diamond shape at the point where the two lines of stitching meet. This creates the uniform look of the arcuate, which is in contrast to previous years, when the single needle application gave each arcuate design a unique appearance, depending on the skill of the operator. Okay, so that's super cool. So, 1947 model is often referred to as a true example of modern jeans. From this point onwards, there was a dramatic shift in sewing specifications. Every detail of these jeans helps define the shape and spirit of this legendary piece of history, the gold standard for classic style jeans. All right, so this is like basically the 5-pocket jean as we know it. Oh, sorry, getting all crazy here. The difference is this is copied off a pair that doesn't have the arcuate, or maybe they can't legally put the arcuate on. I don't know. Anyways, they look like this. A lot of them have the arcuate. Other companies make them too. This is Warehouse's version of a 1947. Again, standard 5-pocket. You got the 2 pockets in the back, the yoke right here, center belt loop with 2 belt loops on the sides and a leather patch. In the front, you got a button fly. There's no more crotch rivet. You got the rivets back on the coin pocket again. You got rivets here at the 2 front hand pockets, belt loops here in the front, and hidden rivets on the back pockets. And that's the deal. That's a 47. And it's got this like wide leg, straight fit going on. Sugarcane. I have a sugarcane one. I have the same exact pair right here. Got it off Hinoya. It's a good pair. Same thing. This is just their version of it. 1947. So, yeah, I don't know much about these things, but as far as I understand and in my limited experience, if you want just the classic, bare bones, no nonsense, classic straight fit, like an 8-inch, 8.5-inch, 9-inch leg opening, you're looking for a 1947. If you want like a 9-inch or so leg opening and you want a cinch back, then you're looking at these back here, like a lot of these 1890s, 1920s versions. Just, you know, choose your poison, whichever one strikes your fancy as far as which details it has. I like the Blackhorse a lot. My favorite is probably the Black Sign, honestly. If I'm going to do a cinch back, for now, I'm going to do something like the Black Sign. Kind of a more updated, like 1890s cross with a 1920s sort of thing. But the Blackhorse is pretty cool too. But anyways, if you want just the standard 5-pocket, you want to go with a 47. That's what I'm seeing. Yeah, my sugarcane's been great, but I would like to try some others at some point. Anyways, so that's the 47. Let's go back. In 1950s, the word Levi's is now stitched on both sides of the red tab. We are not sure why this was done. 1954, a zippered version of the overalls is introduced and named 501Z. This was introduced as we begun selling our products on the East Coast of the United States, and many people were unfamiliar with the button fly. Late 1950s? Well, actually, real quick there, I don't know what this really means. I'm assuming it means the West Coast saw a lot of jeans, and it wasn't until the 50s that it really hit the East Coast, and people were like, what the heck is this button fly? I don't know. Late 1950s, the leather patch is replaced by a 2-horse patch made of heavy-duty cardstock. That drives me up the wall. I've had a couple pairs that have this like cardstock thing, and it in the wash sometimes it gets like really messed up. I don't know. I'm not a fan. I always like to have leather. Anyways, this is due to the fact that the company was selling products nationally and it was becoming more expensive to use real leather. Also, the newer automatic washing machines were very hard on the real thing. So anyways, this is like TCB's 1950s style jean. So this is early 50s apparently, because it's still got the button fly. Yeah, still kind of the same 5 pocket as far as I know, but I think they slimmed it out just a little bit. If you want that high rise and all that stuff and the wide leg, I'm pretty sure that 1947 is your jam. All right, let's check out some other ones. This is Sugarcane's model. Never tried this. This is late 50s, I guess, because it says, see right here, 1955Z, just like it said on that document. So you got the zipper fly right here, the zipper. But other than that, I mean, everything's pretty much the same. Hidden rivets on the back pocket. You would have seen the double-sided Levi red tab right here with Levi's arcuate. Yep, standard. Dude, look at this guy's cuffs. What's going on, man? That's so funny when they do that. Like, I feel like people would sell more product if they just said, hey, we're going to take a hit and one garment, we're going to like actually wear it. Like, not take a starchy one off the rack and not hem it. We're going to like hem it correctly. We're going to, you know what I'm saying? And this right here, I'm not sure. I've always wanted to know. Let me know if you know. Okay, check out right here. See this? How that belt loop is off center. Is that a vintage detail? Is it for comfort? I don't know. Like, why would you not put it right in the center? Maybe that's a vintage detail. That would be cool to know. Anyways, okay, here's a 60s jean. So we're going to move on. 1960, the word overalls is replaced by the word jeans in advertising and on packaging. We had made other products in the past which we called jeans, specifically denim pants for boys in the 1930s. But our top-of-the-line overalls, 501 jeans, did not get this name until teenagers began calling the product jeans in the 1950s. No one really knows why the word became associated with the men's overalls, but teenagers adopted the phrase, and it became the term used by all manufacturers. So, as I said before, I do know that jeans, that was a historical term. So somebody must have did some research, or that name popped back up, or maybe that name survived for like decades and decades, hundreds of years. But jeans, as far as I know, is what like Europeans would call the blue fabric from Italy. So, or Genoa, wherever that is. I'm pretty sure that's Italy. Other than that, Levi, up until 1960s, called them overalls. Nowadays, overalls are like, you know, you pull them up, put the straps over your shoulders. But it's just interesting to know that until the 1960s, they were not called jeans. They were called overalls. Trippy. Waist overalls, or overalls for short. So that's fascinating. Okay, they're called jeans now, and now they're actually marketed as jeans. 1961, pre-shrunk Levi's are introduced. So up until this point, one thing that this didn't talk about yet is things were unsanforized. They were all shrink to fit. So now that's this really like boutique-y niche thing that, you know, denim head people do. I got into it recently and it's a lot of fun. My flathead 3005s, they're unsanforized. They come like 3 sizes too large or whatever it is, 2 sizes too large. You soak them or wash them or whatever, and they shrink down to your size. So if you get it wrong, then sorry about your luck. You're going to have to get a new pair. Anyways, pre-shrunk Levi's are introduced for obvious reasons. Like, what a pain in the butt. We like it because it's fascinating to us, but on the day-to-day, who in the world would want, you know, jeans that you have to shrink to fit, right? We would all want pre-shrunk. So I don't know if that's the sanforization process right there, or if they just pre-shrunk them, but that was 1961. Okay, 1964, jeans become part of the permanent collections of the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. 1966, the first television commercial for Levi's jeans is aired. The rivets are removed from the back pockets and replaced with bar tacking. I'll show you that in a second. This is due to the fact that the strong rivets eventually wore through the denim, exposing them and causing the problems that led to their being covered back in 1937, scratching furniture. Okay, so here's the 60s jean. Let's see how accurate these are. Not that I'm like the source on that. These are cool anyhow. Not going to show us much. Yeah, I don't know. I do know that the cut though was a little different. They get kind of slimmer with lower rises like the more you go through the decades. Here's the 66 model. Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, so this looks like it actually has hidden rivets, this one. Let me see. Nope. Nope. Okay, we're good. Yeah, so see right here? This is what's called a bar tack. What that does is it reinforces that pocket, because this area right here is going to start separating from the garment. It's going to rip, because that's the tension point. All those times you're like putting things in and taking them out of your pocket. So instead of having a hidden rivet in there or an exposed rivet, they just added this huge beefy stitch on top of a stitch on top of a stitch to just strengthen that. So that's what that is. As far as I can see from the document, that's the main difference. All right, so that's a 66. 71, the word Levi's on the red tab is now stitched in white with a capital L only. The Levi looks like it, the E looks like it changed, leading to the vintage concept of big E and little e. This was done to conform to the company's new house mark, the Batwing, which was adopted in 1967, in which the word Levi's is meant to be the proper name of our founder, Levi Strauss. Okay, so if it's a lowercase e, it looks like, let's see. Hold on, with capital L only. Okay, so if it's a little e, it's like post 70s. If you have a pair of Levi's that's got a capital E, like Levi's is all caps on the red tab, then you know it's pre-1971. That's how I interpret this. So kind of fascinating. So if you own the pair, or you get them from like your grandpa or whatever, buy them at a garage sale, you're at a, Swap Me, whatever, a vintage clothing store, and you see all big letters, then it's pre-1971. If it's capital L, lowercase e, lowercase v, lowercase I, then you're looking at something after that. All right. 81, 501 jeans for women are introduced. That's pretty cool. Cone Mills begins to introduce XXX denim through the use of 60-inch wide looms. I don't know what that is. 84, renowned 501 Blues television advertising campaign is launched in the Summer Olympic Games in Los Angeles. 85, here we're, all right in here, you got like Star Wars coming out and all this stuff. Okay. What's going on? 85, 86. This is a lot about like just their television life. Rock music. 89, I'm born. 92, I'm like 3 years old at this point. Levi's jeans on part of consumers worldwide. Introduces capital E jean in the United States. This also follows on the success of the vintage model created earlier by Levi Strauss Japan. Okay, so looks like at this point, Levi Strauss Japan, the Japanese are doing their omikaze thing, right? They're starting to recreate vintage Americana garments. Okay, so capital E jean becomes like this repro kind of deal because of interest in Levi's jeans. Fascinating. 93 contest to find the oldest pair of Levi's in the United States. The winning pair sent in dates to the late 1920s. That's cool. 96, building on the success of capital E product, a new series of vintage reproductions called the Levi's Vintage Clothing line is introduced in stores worldwide. They still exist. They do limited runs of stuff. You can go on their website. I never owned anything, but I've seen other people own them. They look cool, but everybody says that Levi's Vintage Clothing is hilariously not as accurate as some of these other companies. So doesn't really bother me. I'm not really a big repro guy, to be honest. But I do enjoy vintage inspired. So as I said, I like a lot of those brands I showed you, even though very few of them are perfectly accurate. Because you know what? It's like it needs to be vintagey, but it needs to be functional. So like I love the idea of a 4-pocket 1890s Levi, but for crying out loud, I'm not wearing suspenders. And I don't even want suspender buttons on there. I don't want that look. I don't want them in the way. I want belt loops. So yeah, that kind of thing. Anyways, 97, Levi's buys a pair of 1890 501 jeans for $25,000. So an actual vintage pair. That's cool. 1998, Levi's 501 celebrates 125 years of originality. 2003, they celebrate 130th anniversary of the invention of the blue jean as we know it. And then this is fascinating here. This is from June 28th, 1873, issue of Pacific Rural Press. This is like the announcement or whatever. A new pocket fastening. Mr. J.W. Davis, formerly of Reno, Nevada, but now residing in this city, San Francisco, has just received through the Scientific Press Patent Agency letters patent for an improvement in fastening the seams of pockets. The improvement consists in the employment of a metal rivet or eyelet for fastening the seams. Simple as this device seems, nevertheless, it is quite effective, and we do not doubt that his manufacture of overalls especially will become quite popular amongst our working men, as the overalls are made and cut in the style of the best custom-made pants. Nothing looks more slouchy in a workman than to see his pockets ripped open and hanging down, and no other part of the clothing is so apt to be torn and ripped as the pockets. Besides its slouchy appearance, it is inconvenient and often results in the person losing things from his pockets. Levi Strauss & Company of this city are sole agents for the new manufacture and will soon place them in the market in large quantities, so that our miners, farmers, and working men can supply themselves with superior overalls. So it's really the rivets. That's what made it. And then after that, it was interesting because their jean kept evolving. And as someone who was in construction work for over 10 years of daily work, that was my career. I was an electrician, commercial, mostly industrial some, residential some. And I worked in the office a bit as a manager and all that. As someone who did that for years, I can tell you it's pretty cool what Levi did to the workwear world, because whether it's a Levi you're wearing or some other brand, maybe a Carhartt, it's cool because now the issue is you wear holes in things. You wear holes in the knees of the pants. You wear holes in the crotch. The hem of the legs gets tattered and frayed. Things like that. Belt loops tear off and all that. But you never have problems with the pockets. And who would have thought? That's because everybody uses rivets now. So whereas the issue used to be they would work and work and work until the pockets were falling off and things are falling out of their pockets and all that, now the rivets have fixed that. And so our pants now last so long that the pockets will stay intact long after the rest of the jean or duck canvas work pant or whatever it is like torn to shreds. So thank you, Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis. Very cool. It was cool reading this document. And yeah, now maybe you have a new fascination and interest in these and you can check some of them out. These are good places to buy. Hinoya. Or like, TCB directly. You could buy Levi's vintage clothing, But yeah, there's all kinds of people that carry this kind of stuff. James Dant purveyors, all these people. And yeah, so enjoy. I'm going to keep wearing mine. And until next time, let your jeans take you to places more important than the jeans themselves. This is David on the Vintage Future. And enjoy wearing those jeans.